Thanks for having me. I do have to start by saying two things. First, I apologize to you and your listeners for kind of looking a little homeless and shaggy with this hair. That's, I guess, my COVID hair. It's starting to turn into I was leaving the house today and I told my wife, I was like, I have a mullet. I have officially grown a mullet.
Listen, I would if I could. So no.
Yeah. And
no blame.
And your background is awesome. I'm in the process of reorganized. I just didn't finish it. So anyways, but I appreciate you having me on the show. And yeah, so like you said, my name is Justin Stivers. I own a law firm called the Probate Law Firm. Our main office is in Miami, Florida, but we're practicing throughout the entire state of Florida, which is really great for us in terms of probate, because it's just the way Florida sets up, has everything set up electronically. We're able to operate throughout the entire state. So I think as of right now, we have a little over 20, we're in 20 different counties of the 67 counties in Florida. So it's been really great for us. But yeah, we do, so I started this firm a couple years ago. And honestly, I saw, so probate, most of your listeners probably know what it is, but just briefly, probate occurs after somebody has passed away. So usually, most commonly, someone, mom and dad have a piece of real estate, mom dies, now dad owns it, he dies, and now his children want to inherit the property to either sell it or rent it or get title in their name. So they have to hire a probate attorney, go through the process. And I can talk a little bit about the process here in a bit, but at the end of it, the judge is going to say who the owner is of that. And so I just saw kind of an area that I thought was underserved in a lot of ways. Probate, I tell people, I would say probably 90% of the time families get along and it's fine. 10% of the time they fight and it rips the family apart. But even that 90% that goes smooth, it's still a very difficult process because you've lost a loved one, and I just saw that I felt like it wasn't, the legal process is hard enough, and I think that it was kind of an older model where people were not doing things electronically. It was difficult for the clients, especially, we work with your firm and a lot of firms, in other states where it's just not convenient for someone who is living in Massachusetts, but mom and dad had a place down in Palm Beach, for them to fly down and meet with an attorney. They'd rather do things electronically, sign things electronically, right, have telephonic consultation. So I just saw kind of an opportunity where, as a younger, I guess, attorney, I thought there was maybe there was an opportunity to kind of enter the marketplace and provide services to better, help out the consumer in the probate area.
Oh, that's fantastic. And like we were talking a little bit about before, up here in Massachusetts, we call them snowbirds. So we've got clients that live here, their primary residence is here in Mass, but they spend the winter months in Florida, different places in Florida. And after going down, winter after winter, we've got lots of clients that just decide they want to buy property there instead of having to stay in hotels and timeshares every time. And so sometimes they're buying condominiums, single family residences. Most of our clients, they'll continue to be here in Mass for most of the year, but when we get into, after New Year's and, February and March, those are really the dog days here for us in New England because, it's dark out when you go to work in the morning. It's still dark when you come home. And, at the same time, it's freezing and the roads are slippery. So as, clients here get into retirement, they said, okay, I've been dealing with this, these New England winters for 60 years. I've had enough, but their families are here, so they don't want to relocate permanently, and they'll spend those winter months in Florida. And when we have clients that come to us because someone has passed and we need to do probate for them here in Massachusetts, there are some New England states that allow us to handle probate for real estate located outside our borders, but are, close by, like New Hampshire and Maine. But clients that have property in Florida, I have to explain to them that Florida has its own, unique set of rules, the way that probate is handled. Even though someone may have been appointed as a personal representative for an estate here in Massachusetts doesn't automatically carry over to Florida. So I was hoping you could give just a little bit of a rundown about how that process works, and especially in the age now with COVID and trying to do as many things electronically as we can, that we could have somebody here in property in Florida use you to deal with the probate, but it doesn't mean that they necessarily have to fly down there at all because you're able to handle things electronically. So if you could give a little bit of a rundown there, I think that'd be very helpful for my clients to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a very common situation. And so in your world, kind of what you were explaining is you've got a client who is making the transition either slowly or quickly to get out of those snowy, dark days that you were saying, and move into Florida. So they might purchase a residence and make it part-time, make it full-time, either or. I know you and your team do a great job planning, and so you're going to talk with your clients about putting the property into a trust, most likely to try to avoid probate, and we might work with you to do that. But for those instances where it's not put into a trust, which is a lot of times, for whatever reason, someone purchases a property, even if they have a trust, they might forget to tell their attorney, hey, I bought this house in Florida and I didn't put it in the name of the trust. I'm sure you're laughing because you've seen that, I guess.
Absolutely. It happens. I'll get almost to the finish line on an estate plan and say, oh, did I mention I have a condo in Florida, or I have a cabin in Maine, or whatever the case may be. It's one of those things that I had to learn over time, that I need to ask that question right in the initial meeting. What do you own any of the real estate? Because it happens as a surprise at the end. So
yeah, it happens. Or the timeshares in Orlando and Disney, that's another big thing, which I don't see as much anymore. I think timeshares are kind of not as popular as they were, but I still see a little bit of that. And so what happens is, whoever, mom and dad purchased this property again somewhere in Florida, but their kids, everybody else lives in Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, wherever. And they pass away. And now the kids, they want to, most of the time they want to sell the property, right? I see a lot of times they want to sell it just because maybe they don't have the resources to keep paying the maintenance, to pay if there's a mortgage on it, to pay the mortgage. So yeah, a lot of times they want to sell it, but before they can do that, they have to go through the probate process, which I explained a little bit earlier, to get it in their name so that they can be able to sell it. And that's where they get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes, because they might not have any connection to Florida. They might have come and visited mom and dad, but they don't know anyone in Florida, right? Everyone is in. So they'll go to you or go to the parents' attorney who drafted everything. And they think, unfortunately, they're like, well, if we're doing a probate here in Massachusetts, can't you just tell the judge, that they've got this house in Florida and change the deed? Right. And Florida, is unique in a lot of ways, and they do not want to work with other states in that sense. And so unfortunately for your clients, or for people in that situation, they're going to have to go through another probate process here in Florida. And without getting into the weeds, sometimes we use the same documents that you all use in Massachusetts, but we still have to go through probate here. Sometimes we have to do a full-blown probate. It really just kind of depends on the specifics. But most of the time, yeah, if they had a property here, we're going to have to go through the probate process before they can sell it or do anything. And so, yeah, to your point about do they have to travel down here? Maybe in the olden days, yes. Now, not at all. Like I was saying, it's just not, for your clients to fly down here, meet with the attorney. It's not necessary. And we were doing this pre-COVID, but I think, yeah, now in the world of COVID, people have seen that we can do a lot of things virtually, whether it's Zoom, telephonic. When we work with a client, everything that we do is virtual. Most of the times we're going to do everything over the telephone. We will do Zoom meetings if that's what they want or prefer. When we need documents signed, most of the documents can be signed electronically. So I would say a good 90% of the documents are going to be sent to their email, and they don't have to print anything out. They just click sign, and we make it extremely easy. Even the notary, I know we were talking a little bit about this earlier. Right. Now you can even have get online face to face and have documents notarized online. So, again, it's still not enjoyable for the client because, mom and dad died and they're going through probate and it's just a hassle, frankly, for them.
Sure.
But I think the benefit of it is that now we can do everything electronically. So they, what I always tell our clients is like, listen, my goal in this process is that you don't even know this is going on, right? Like, I just want to take everything from start to finish and we keep you up to date. But at the end of the process, property's in your name and you focus on grieving and doing other things that are more valuable than this part of it.
Right. And that's fantastic. And we look at it the same way here. Obviously, the family is going through a difficult time. So the easier we can make the process, the better. The less labor intensive for them, the better, so that they can deal with, like you said, grieving and being there for their families. And lots of people don't really, if they haven't had experience with it before, they may not really know what probate is or how it works. And so they have this misconception that they're going to have to go and stand in front of a judge. And that means, flying to Florida or wherever the case may be and stand in front of a judge in order to get the property title changed over, when in reality, the way things are done now, that's just not necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are afraid, well, going to court, I don't want to have to do that. We're attorneys, so we can almost never say never, but really never is the client going to have to go to court. That's just not something that happens. And again, even for us now, which is great, which was a little bit before COVID, but definitely now with COVID, even for the attorneys, we do everything telephonic when I'm in court. Which is why I can have the hair like this. I'm on the phone, so the judge is not going to see me, and it's okay. So it's really, it's a very simple process. I mean, and I think, for your viewers and for your clients listening, I think the key is, tell your attorney, your estate planning attorney, if you have other property, because obviously, probate is good for us as the attorneys to get it done, but for you, the client, you want to, if you can avoid that, my suggestion is get it, you can avoid it very easily by putting it into a trust or doing some sort of planning.
Right, exactly. And when we meet with clients to do their estate plans, part of what we're looking at is what their goals are, and lots of times it's to take care of my family or to minimize taxes. But at the same time, we want to minimize probate when we can, and so putting property into a trust really makes things easier if someone passes, because we don't have to deal with the changing over of title process, through the probate court. Now, we've been, our probate courts here in Mass have allowed electronic filing for a while, but the electronic notarization, for right now with us, that wasn't allowed at all until COVID. And for us here, it's a temporary rule, meaning they may roll that back once the crisis passes. Now, for electronic notarizing with you guys, were you doing that before COVID, or was that as a result of COVID as well?
It's pretty much a result of COVID. Yeah, it's a pretty new thing, and we'll see. I mean, I think it's here to stay, though. I think that's going to be here to stay.
Yeah, I'd be glad as well. Even when you mentioned that you're able to send documents electronically and somebody can just point and click. In Massachusetts, we don't even have that. We still have to have them print, sign, and scan back to us, and we can scan the documents to the court. But the signatures aren't electronic. There's got to be a wet signature on those documents. So in a lot of ways, I think you guys in Florida are ahead of us. Because it's a pain in the neck. Not every client has a scanner or a working printer, and especially our clients that are in nursing homes don't have the technology to be able to print this stuff out, but we require it here. So just the fact that you guys have a point.
Yeah, well, we might be progressive in some ways, but not in a lot of ways.
Well, like you said, Florida doesn't have, in Massachusetts, we have this reciprocal jurisdiction with a lot of the other New England states. So, even an attorney that's licensed to practice in Massachusetts, after they have enough experience, they can get licensed in New York or in New Hampshire. But in Florida, you can't do that, right? You got to take the bar exam, right?
Yeah, I had to. There's some things. I was recently licensed in, so I'm licensed in Tennessee as well, and I had to go through a lot of the same processes. And that's my last bar exam. I'm not doing it again. I'm done with it.
Yeah, unless I become a snowbird myself and open a Florida office, I don't think I'm taking any more bar exams. I'm licensed in New York, and I just put in the application to be licensed in New Hampshire, but it's not a bar exam required because our laws are so similar. Once you've been in practice 10 years, as long as you can show that you're of good character, which I guess is for me is a question mark, but. But they'll allow us to be licensed there. But I do tell my clients that come in that are snowbirds that Florida is unique. They've got their own rules, and that you really need to have a lawyer that knows what they're doing when it comes to this stuff. Because if they, there's things that by law they can't even do themselves if they wanted to, and it's easy to mess it up, and
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about title, to property.
Well, I think it's, and you probably see this in general, but I mean, one of the things that people just don't realize, I think in general about probate, whether it's in Massachusetts, I mean, some states are actually significantly easier, but Florida is, I guess, could be seen as difficult because there's really, there's no way to avoid the process in a lot of ways other than doing the trust or something. And I have a business card right behind me, and on the top of it, it says, "Did you know that having a will does not avoid probate?" And that's a huge misconception that a lot of people have. And I think that's just that's just something that people don't realize. They purchase a house, and it's so easy to avoid for their kids, but they just don't think about it. And then the kids, they think, oh, well, I'm the only son, or we're the only kids. Of course, we're going to get the property. And they just don't know. And then they go to the clerk, they hire a realtor, whatever. And then they find out, wait, we've got to go through this entire process. And they find out, again, for us, depending, most probates last about 7 months in Florida, 7 to 9 months, somewhere around there. And so it takes a little bit of time, and that's difficult for the kids. Again, depending on the house, if it's, if there's a large mortgage, the kids might not have 7 to 9 months to wait before they can sell it to pay the mortgage, to pay the property taxes, and everything like that. I mean, it's, again, for the client itself, it's a very easy process. Like I said, like, and you said, they're not going to come down here, they're not going to go to court. It's very simple, but it is a time. There is a time element which can adversely affect the client.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's circumstances are different, but like you said, having to pay something like a mortgage or association fees can be burdensome, which is why it's important to start the process right away. And I do get asked that question a lot, wait a minute, by doing my will, I thought that means we don't have to go through probate. And it's something I have to explain all the time and say, no, that's not the way it works. We can use the trust to avoid probate on some things, but that doesn't mean that we've avoided probate altogether just by virtue of having a will. That's, it's a common misconception that, I find myself explaining a lot.
Yeah. And one thing just to add to that, because it came up, were they in Massachusetts? It's somewhere in the Northeast. I don't remember. And I don't know how it is in Massachusetts, but Florida is very strict about handwritten wills. So that's what's called holographic wills. And for the most part, we don't accept them. They're not going to be good. If they're witnessed, it might be okay, but they're still very much frowned upon. And so that's something that people just don't know. And so I had a potential client, and there was nothing I could do for them. I said, sorry, whatever the story, she wasn't related to the person. It was handwritten. He signed it. There were no witnesses. And I was just like, I can't really help you with that. So I don't know if you see that much, but that's definitely something
we
that
do.
Yeah.
And Massachusetts doesn't recognize holographic wills either. If it was a written document that had 2 witnesses and a notary, then I could probably push it through, but otherwise I can't. In fact, I had a client that had property here and in Florida, and they passed away, and they had a handwritten will, but it was funny. It was of the type that it didn't meet all of Massachusetts specifications, so we had to do a probate here as if there was no will, but it had enough done to it that it was recognizable in Florida as a valid will, but not here. So they were able to do the probate of the condo in Florida as though there was a will, and here we had to do it as if there there wasn't one. So it's just crazy.
Interesting, yeah.
Differences between the states. So obviously, any of my clients that need to get in touch with you to talk about property in Florida, they can, of course, reach out to me and I'll put them in contact. But Justin, if you want to just provide your website or even your phone number, if anybody wants to reach out to you directly, how do they do that?
Yeah, I think the best is just to go to our website. It's just probatefirm.com. And if they're looking to learn more about, Florida probate, which I don't know if they are, but we have a free resource again behind me, a book, Ultimate Guide to doing a probate in Florida. And so we really, very user-friendly, simple. How long does it take? What documents do they need to have? What does it involve? So, they can go onto our website, probatefirm.com, download a copy of that. And that's probably the best way to get in contact with us.
All right, perfect. That's awesome. Justin, thank you so much. Hugely informative. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for taking the time.
My pleasure. Stay warm up there.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.